Hey everybody, Adam Savage at FBFX with Grant and, well, you know this guy. I've done so many costume videos, but it is absolutely rare that I get to cover something so iconic. You guys built a Vader! So much of what we've covered here, you guys are making brand new spacesuits and costumes and using materials and techniques that no one's ever used before. And here you are replicating an iconic piece of film history. Talk to me about how you approached this project.
Yeah. Trepidation. So obviously this guy is legend, and anyone who's in our industry, this thing has inspired most of us probably to get into the industry at those films. So you take this on, humbly.
Yeah.
So we're trying to bring new techniques to it. Mm-hmm. We're trying to make it more comfortable, maybe a bit lighter, but we don't want to change anything that makes it what it is. We could go crazy and it all look futuristic and machined. We don't want to do any of that. There's quirks, things about him that make him him, and if you change those, everyone's going to see. And I don't want to be the guy who does that. So.
No. They approached you to build this Vader for Obi-Wan. What were the restrictions you had? You had to. This is a fighting suit.
Yeah. So that's the biggest change. Right. So these guys are going to do more action than we've ever seen him do before.
And this is not a suit that's easy to move around. I mean, I made one years ago, and even out of vinyl, I almost got heat stroke in it.
Yeah. No, historically, this is difficult to move in. We've seen him, he's menacing, he moves slowly, but he's going to be fighting Obi-Wan. So, it's going to get, a lot more action. The saber play is going to be a lot more involved. So, we've got to make sure everything's secure, mm-hmm. nothing's flapping, moving. These helmets have got to stay on. He's going to be able to see somehow. On the face of it, you think you're just replicating a thing. There's actually a lot to think about. The way it's layered, the way it's put together is slightly different from previous versions.
Oh, interesting.
Probably more complicated to put on because we're strapping things down, we're keeping things in place. Any of the strappings and underpinnings underneath, they're all kind of heavy elastics, so things can still move, but they come back to where they should be.
It is a culmination of 1,000 tiny details that all have to work together. Can we start with the leather undersuit? What were the complexities that surprised you?
So we looked at endless photos, obviously. Lucasfilm supplied us with loads of great reference material. And just the simple fact of getting the sheen to match, getting this crinkling to crinkle just right, but not too crinkled.
The crinkling is...
Yeah, so some of this crinkling, it's all this leather has been selected and then it's been hand-worked. Each part, each skin of leather has been hand-worked, and then when it's sewn in, these crinkles have been deliberately sewn in so that they stay put.
No way.
When this quilting's done, it's already kind of pre-crinkled.
And did you make one suit or do you make several suits?
Oh yeah, no, we have multiple suits.
Okay.
So there were a lot of tests just to get the leather right, get the look of the leather right, the level of quilting inside the leather right. Just great respect to the original costume, really, trying not to change anything and just kind of get it looking as authentic as possible.
Given the movement that had to happen, did you guys do some specific engineering on the cape to achieve certain kinds of gestures from it?
The cape is more to do with the fabrics that it's built out of, because obviously it's got to move in that really beautiful flowing way when he moves. But we tried to pick fabrics that have all of that, encompass all that, but are maybe a little bit lighter weight than the previous version. But it needs some weight as well because it's got to kind of waft in the right way.
Yeah. So I'm curious, like you said, we all grew up with this. This is such a thing burned into all of our minds. What aspect of the project surprised you that you didn't expect to be surprised by?
The helmet is a whole thing on its own. From the ground up, there's a lot to think about. So this helmet is actually a combination of different helmets from different movies. So there are certain elements that were picked from episode 4, for instance, and others, some elements maybe like the Rogue One helmet that they liked, kind of combining all of those different things together. And many, many iterations looked at in illustration and then digital models, just trying to find the right balance and never lose the quirkiness of the original, because he's not symmetrical, but we don't want him to be, because he just won't look like himself, so.
Well, I'm curious about this mantle. On my costume, it is just this shell that's over the shoulders. That does not promote lots of movement.
Yeah, so we made some changes. So this one, obviously, we didn't. They're going to fight, so these things can't flap. On the original costume, they're kind of loose.
Yeah.
So they're kind of elastic hinges,
yeah.
so they can get their arms up, but they always come back.
Yeah.
And then the mantle itself is strapped through all the layers of the costume. So it goes through the surcoat, through the top layer of leather, and then there's another 2 layers underneath that, that kind of help hold the whole thing together. And then underneath all of that, there's a vest, and that vest is there. It's a little bit inspired by a kind of vest we see on stuntmen sometimes. Sure. The kind of harnesses that you can clip into. So the straps for this will through all of that onto that vest, which is really secure on the body, so that we just know that this is never going to get away or jump up and hit him under the chin or anything like that.
I had an occasion a few months ago to hang out for a little while with Hayden Christensen. And after I felt comfortable about half an hour, I said, okay, can we talk about the suit? And he was like, yeah. And I said, how was it to wear it? And he said, it's a beast. And then he said, it was great for character. Yeah. Right? Like it really put him in the mind of Vader to have all this stuff strapped on and to feel all that weight on his body.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's a lot to carry around. Yeah. And no matter what you do, no matter how clever you are, you're going to feel restricted. But this guy, I think, so much of the way he moved in the original, when we first saw him when we were kids, came from the restrictions the suit gave.
Of course it did.
And I just think that it just still creates that kind of presence when someone's wearing it now. You recognise the way he moves, and I think if it was really, really light, everything was kind of carbon fiber and super modern, I don't think he would move right.
Oh, fascinating. Personally. I mean, look, standing in front of him, I'm always astounded by how much lasting power this beautiful design has 40 plus years later. Yeah. Right? Like, they really nailed it. You know that this is a bad guy, he's scary, and you're still in his thrall. Yeah, absolutely. And that's the biggest thing for us taking it on, is just, that's a responsibility. We know we've got to make some changes, and we're obviously all those changes are, discussing with Sutrat, who's a costume designer, and Doug Chang at Lucasfilm, that everything's signed off. But ultimately, when we're building it and making it, if we get it wrong, we've got it wrong. And I don't want to, I've looked for my whole life to do this. I don't want to look back and think, oh God, Look, a lot of times when you're going through the design process with the studio, because you're working on new costumes, you're going for a target. No one knows quite what the target is until you get there. Yeah. But in this case, the target is really clear. It sounds the way you're describing it that Lucasfilm was a great partner in finding that right target. Yeah, absolutely. It's not something you would want to do without those guys backing up and helping you kind of navigate through what not to do and what they really want. And it's an educational process for you and them, right? Because you're showing them what's possible with the technology, what they want to achieve, and you're also still trying to get back to that OG fix. Yeah. So this is it. I mean, and ultimately you have to bow to their years of experience and knowledge and looking after, the legend of this guy. So, if we want to move a thing a little bit that way, maybe we shouldn't just go ahead and do it. We better make sure that everyone agrees, So. And the lighting, I'm assuming you guys are very sophisticated with your lighting. You're able to adjust it all to camera. So is that the same here? Each of these bulbs is minutely adjustable? Pretty much all of this you can turn out individually and dim individually. So they can do all that from a lighting desk. So this is all got each piece has got a controller in that is addressable by DMX, which is kind of industry standard. Yeah. Oh, there we go. There you go. Somebody's. And are you 3D printing or machining these buttons? And I mean, these guys look fantastic. They look like the original buttons. Yeah. So again, you can't just easily go to the shop and buy the old parts anymore. So we had to recreate them digitally, print them, clean them, remold them, recast them. Oh, and remolding them meant color timing the green perfectly. Yeah. Lots and lots of prototyping, lots of experimentation, just trying to get the colors right. Same as, when we were working with the leather, just all the different tests just to get it just right. Can we talk about the asymmetrical silver paint on the face? Yeah. That's one of my favorite details about Darth Vader that most people don't see until someone tells you to look for it. Yeah. So these panels one is painted and one is not.
Yeah, so we've got obviously the glossy black, but there's actually like a dark metallic grey.
Yeah.
And it just helps that shape really pop on camera. I said I wouldn't confess this to you, but we're going to. When Lucasfilm sent some helmets for us to look at as reference, it's the first time I ever realised, and I felt so dumb because I've been looking at this guy my whole life, and I just didn't know. So,
to be fair, I didn't know until I made my own one that the paint job was so asymmetrical in the silver and black.
But it's so clever, this is just something we brought over from the other helmets and just copied it.
And the red lenses, you guys did that here.
Yeah, so they're cast here. So think back in the day, they were probably like acrylic.
Yeah, red acrylic.
Yeah. So these ones, again, they're vacuum cast just in a clear polyurethane. And it's just...
You're casting your own lenses now.
Yeah, so it gives us a chance to really... Because especially a curved lens like this, it can be really easy for it to distort and vision to be difficult. So
yeah, sure.
It just gives us like a really high level of control over the thickness. Like make sure it's even all the way through. Don't want any lensing going on if we can help it.
And the consistency of color too.
Exactly. And the pattern pieces for that before we mold them, one of the model makers will sit and polish for days and days and days to get them as perfect as possible. So
I was wondering how long it takes to get them optically clear. Days and days?
Yeah, and then when they're cast out, they're repolished again and over. So yeah.
Wow.
So,
I'd love to talk in more detail about the actual construction of the helmet.
Yeah, no, that's great. It's a complicated thing. There's a lot going on in there. And I think we got Joe and the Jad probably talk to you about that because they were pretty heavily involved in that.
Awesome. I can't wait to get into it. All right, guys, I'm so distracted already by how beautiful this split in the helmet is. But before we get to that, I just want to know how you even start working with Lucasfilm to make a set of such iconic helmets.
So initially I get given a pretty accurate, it'll be the helmet, and then that'll get scanned in 3D.
Okay.
And then I'll use it in my program, which is ZBrush, and I can take it into there, clean it up, like remodel it, and I'll work with the costume designer and make some different versions, made many versions of this. Now,
when you say these different versions, what are the aspects that you're looking at with each of these? Oh, wow, this one looks really weird.
So it is making one symmetrical, then making the eyes match or one look like the other one, and then you take this vent from one's bigger, and then you move it to the other one, and try and like adjust it ever so slightly to then make the final one.
And the whole goal is you're trying to get it to look right, but what is right is a moving target?
Yes.
Amazing. And I'm just fascinated by how weird it looks when it's perfectly symmetrical.
Yeah, when it's perfectly symmetrical, it doesn't quite work. So the idea is to make it somewhat symmetrical. It's not symmetrical, but obviously you need to keep the look of the original, and then you just like modify it slightly, but leave the bumps of the original in there.
You got to have Darth Vader's helmet in your computer.
It was very good fun.
What was the most difficult part for you of working through this process?
It's to be honest, it's working with the parts. There's lots and lots of parts involved in this, and because none of them are symmetrical, you have to make one bit to make the other bit asymmetrical, and then introduce them all together in the entire helmet so it actually works.
So it is like this soup of different parts that don't quite match that all have to join and create.
Pretty much, yeah.
This thing that we all know what it should look like.
Indeed, yeah. And normal 3D work, you make one side, it then makes the other side. You only have half the work. This is probably the whole work.
It's an amazing education, isn't it? In learning about a character you think you know so well.
Yeah, exactly. You think, when you see it on the screen, you're like, that's asymmetrical, but it's actually made by hand initially, and it's difficult to make symmetrical things by hand, and that's how it developed, basically.
So you guys are working over Zoom and over email. How long was the iterative process of coming up with a final helmet design in the computer?
That's a good question. That is many weeks, if not months.
Oh man. Once it is done in the computer, how does it then become reality? Do you 3D print the first masters?
So we usually start off by getting a print done, but quite often, especially with something like this, where there's this is the most established of established costumes.
Sure.
Like even people who aren't into Star Wars know what Vader looks like. And he very quickly, as you pointed out with the symmetry, he can very quickly start to look incorrect. So actually what we do is we do print out, but we do very quick rough prints. So we can kind of get it into the reel. So it's when it's zeros and ones, you never quite get the full feel for it. So we kind of started by just doing what we call rough prints, which are very, very quick prints, just so we can see what it looks like in the reel. You can stand around it. You can look at it from different angles, which you can do in 3D, but it just adds something when it's an analog thing.
And that gives you more perspective for your 3D drawing as well.
Yeah,
to see
getting
these.
something back and being able to see it in real life gives you more places to work on.
And you didn't just work on the outside too. You're modeling. I mean, the inside of Vader's helmet is a known quantity. We've seen it in a few movies. So this is also all modeled by you?
Not modeled by me. I made the shell.
Right.
But other parts on the inside were modeled by someone else.
Oh, okay.
They were modeled by a model maker called Vasily, who did all of the work on it. The harmonica's like already established.
Right.
Because obviously at the end of Empire, you see that. So that is an icon, and also it's a very iconic scene. So that's people know what that looks like and also can look it up. So having to copy those elements is also a massive part of when you're doing the modeling for the dressing scene that appeared in Obi-Wan.
So you've got to come up with the perfect simulacrum of the thing, and then you've got to destroy it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the helmet is in 3 parts, is that right?
So yes, it's we boiled it down to the 3 parts, which is the dome itself, you have the jaw, and then you have the face. We also, on top, that is the main exterior parts, but then on the interior, we also have a head cradle and other elements which allow it to attach to the actors' heads.
Oh, right. That's right. Let's talk about that. That's this system, right?
Yes.
Okay. Because on my Vader helmet is literally a piece of Velcro with like a, that circular cap, and it spins all over the place.
Yes.
You guys couldn't have that.
So, as people have said, this is the fighting Vader. So making everything attach to the helmet was a big element, and making it nicely comfortable and sit on the actor's head is a big element as well. And also the top of Vader's helmet, the iconic look, is very far away from the top of a normal head if you mount the eye line. So we had to find a way of filling that space without adding a humongous amount of weight as well. And one of the techniques that we found with this is by using magnets, you can then remove these elements. This is a very rough print here, but it gives you an idea of the technology. And also it locates then, so you don't have...
It just stays.
It stays where it's meant to stay, which helps with dressing and everything like that as well. It means that then you're not having to reshoot scenes because the helmet's spun or it's not sitting correct and things like that. So it also helps with turnaround time.
That's nice, because the actor inside the suit can't tell it's not pointed in the right direction. Okay, so I'm looking at this and I'm looking at this and I see all this exposed flesh. How does that problem get solved? There's not a lot to hold on to.
I think Joe did a very rough version of this on the helmet. And
The split, you mean?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And I took it into my program and then used that split as a guideline of where to do the cuts and then sculpt all of this into the model.
Did they give you reference?
So we were given a digital reference, which is one of the beauties of working with Lucasfilm and Disney, is they give you very solid reference to work with.
This isn't a shot from the show. This is their painting.
This is their matte painting that they gave us. So if you see here, we really loved things like this little dagger and elements like that. We started sculpting those elements in. As Najad said, we started by we had one of the castings which hadn't worked correctly from when we were doing the clean Vader held, and I just took an angle grinder to it.
But that's how you have to do it, right?
Yeah, it's unfortunately the statement we use is if you're going to bear, you bear grizzly, is one of the statements we use in this workshop.
Wait, say if you're going to bear
grizzly.
Bear grizzly. And when you're doing that, when you're taking the angle grinder, you're kind of working on a silhouette, a gesture.
Yes, so I was sort of following this, but the thing is that when you're taking a two-dimensional image into the 3-dimension, it's what looks correct on there might not necessarily be what works in reality. And also you have to think about angles and elements like that. But once we had that initial cut, We then worked with Sutrat, the designer, and literally using masking tape. And we had this cast of Hayden's head, and we just quickly put the helmet on, and we were just using masking tape to close.
Oh, to adjust
the helmet, so we could just see what, like, just rough, really, really, really super mega rough lines. And then once we had those lines in, then it was moved over to Najad, and then he worked on the actual edge of to get this melted edge. Is it meant to be cut? Is it meant to be melted? Is it meant to be, like, how is it supposed to look? With Sutrat's help, we also were doing sort of like something which was a little bit more sword cut, something which was a little bit more melted, so it had a little bit more of that fragging to it.
What I really like about this is, I think the average person often thinks that computers showed up and changed the film industry and now everything's done on computers. But what you guys are describing is this really lovely symbiotic relationship where you need things done physically to make sure you're hitting the marks, but then you need to take it into your computer and do all this. It's really fascinating, the back and forth oscillation.
Yes. Because with this, Najad, so the way that we moved forwards with this is once we'd established the wound on the dome of the helmet, which is like the main piece of it, as it were, we then, because this is actually a one of one, this is the only one of these that exists. There aren't any more of these. So we could actually do this in quite a traditional model making sense.
Right, because you don't have to make 10.
Necessarily making 10 of them. If we were going to make 10, we probably would have gone more down the digital and then 3D printing route and things like that, because that makes it a lot easier to replicate.
Gotcha.
But because it was a one of one, we could kind of go in and just do a lot of old school model making with it. So once we'd actually established this crack, Najad printed it out, but just like a runoff.
Okay.
A runoff of, like, well, you would say an inch.
2.5 centimeters?
2.5 centimeters, something like that, off on it. And then I cut and shut that into one of our already existing cast out helmets.
Oh, so you modeled the break and then you modeled it into a perfect helmet.
Yeah.
Oh,
So I supplied basically the cut line,
amazing.
and then he could use it to then force this into position.
That's great.
And partly because it was a time thing, but also because we had established all this really beautiful melted edge, it made sense to then basically just take that from digital and then just put it directly in.
I see a lot of flesh here. How does this helmet hold this on Hayden's head? Because you see all this part of his skull.
That was one of the really tricky things we had. Also, one of the things which was, as with all projects, a slight wild card is that Hayden would be wearing the prosthetics underneath this.
Oh my gosh, of
which
course.
Obviously when he's wearing the full suit,
He's not
wearing the prosthetics. So we also had to make sure and adjust things slightly so that he would be able to, because the prosthetics add a certain amount to the face. He's not necessarily going to be wearing them on the neck or the lower face or anything, but at least on the eyes.
Is that a case of you calling up the shop that's making the prosthetics and asking about the thickness of the material?
At the stage, as in, because everybody on the production's moving it's not a case of, oh, they finished this, so we can work on this.
Yeah.
So they were making the prosthetics as we were making this. So, but luckily they actually, which is this mill here that we have of the head is actually, they had a scan of Hayden wearing the prosthetics, which we then milled out here so that we could double check that it actually fit over the prosthetics.
It really is like just the perfect mix of the physical and the digital and the physical and the digital.
There are certain things that it works well for, and you want to use the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
Especially when we're working with people in America. This was obviously during COVID as well, so therefore, you know, although working with America, we do tend to work a little bit more remotely because of the distance, but sometimes you would have been going over there for fittings and things like that, but it wasn't necessarily possible during COVID. So it kind of forced us to do a little bit more remote work than we would necessarily be doing.
Sure.
But it does also help that, you know, you have a lot of people out there with a lot of skills with regards to scanning and things like that.
So you've got parts of the dressed seam here right up against Hayden's skin. What did you do to protect him in there? What sort of extra stuff goes
We had to be careful because obviously padding adds volume.
Right.
So, and we had the bonus with this particular one because he's wearing the prosthetics, so that's going to sort of help him with regards to getting hair caught in things and stuff like that. But generally we just do you do really, really subtle linings, can help with things and everything.
Like moleskin and stuff
moleskin
like that.
and everything. We also sometimes find that, especially when we're working remotely in this sense, sometimes it's better for us to do a nice clean interior as we can, like literally just sanded clean and made nice. Right. And then they can kind of pad it as they need to, because each day on set, you might have to add a little bit here, a little bit there, just to get it to sit right. And if we start gluing things in, it means that they might have to take them out, and it sort of streamlines things a little bit.
Okay, so we talked about the harmonica, that we know what that looks like, and you guys are modeling those details in here so that they fit what people's expectations are. But up in here, this is all blue sky. Yeah. Tell me about how you approach figuring out what the inside of Vader's helmet, like you got to add to the canon of what's inside Vader's head.
Because a lot of this was all model made. It's literally, it was kind of very, very similar to how the original one was made. It was me sitting on a bench and sort of cutting away at things, angle grinding away at things, supporting things like that. And we actually found that some of the elements in there are built on the initial cradle that was holding the helmet, which is actually a purely functional part.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's great, of course.
Because we needed to have that in the helmet to make it work.
Yes, yeah.
And removing that would have created a
whole bunch of new problems,
which would have taken a lot more. Because we needed to make this still as a functional helmet. It still needs to be able to come off and on and everything like that. So we sort of started building in elements and then dressing in elements and things like that. I had a few days of where you're kind of just staring at it, just like, trying to work out the correct way to approach the problem. And then after a while, you kind of just...
You make a first cut.
As I said, you pick up the angle grinder and you just...
So I, in my life and my career, I have burnt and seared and set fire to many things. And I'm a maker, so I've worked with a lot of burnt metal. And when I look at the paint job here of this split, the blues and the coppers really speak to me that it is a material I've never encountered before. And I'm wondering, as the painting is happening, that's what you're going for? Are you looking for something that feels that kind of new and foreign?
Well, we sort of, working with suture out and also looking at the thing and also making an educated guess about what had caused the wound, we assumed that it was going to be like something hot that would have caused the wound. So we wanted
you've got some wonderful bubbling up here that looks just like that.
And we wanted to bring in a bit of that sort of the rainbowing that you get when you cut steel or particularly titanium. You get that rainbowing effect. And we wanted to bring in some of those sorts of elements in it. But without it, it's still Vader, so it's a black. We don't want him with a rainbow scar because it wouldn't work. So we had to sort of get it very, very subtly in there. But then also once we'd put that element in there, we then knocked it back. So it had that sort of like ashy feel to it. Yeah. Like it had a bit of a carbonized look. So you get that like real burnt look to everything. Oh. And that was achieved by our lead painter, Anadora, did that sort of as a very last minute thing, as it always happens. So one of the other little subtle changes that we did on this is this actually has a black lens in it. Oh, okay. Or very dark, very, very dark grey, as Batman would say. Because although Vader has the orange or red lenses in his true helmet, you don't actually see that when he's on screen because it reads all as black. Right. But we found that when we had the yellow lens in this, because you have this massive open void, it lit into the back of the helmet and it just gave him a big orange eye. So we actually had to subtly change that as well, just to give it that flatness. And obviously because he's got half of his helmet missing, vision's not as much of an issue as if he's wearing the full true helmet as well.
I'm curious if there is a part of this helmet that's still, like you look at it and you think, oh, I'm so stressed out by that part.
The main thing is probably the asymmetry. Yeah. Obviously, I'd love it to be symmetrical, but that doesn't quite work. So really just getting feedback from someone else, knowing that it looks all right and you're moving in the right direction is probably ideal.
It must have felt good when you finally got there.
Yes.
So I have to tell you, I watched this episode of Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I didn't know that FBFX had built this prop. I was watching it going, oh, we're looking at the inside of Vader's helmet. Then on this trip, I found out that you guys built it. It is truly magnificent work. And am I right that getting this perfectly, really beautiful black finish is just totally easy?
Oh, yeah. Mirror black is the easiest finish to get. That's 5 minutes work.
It's truly magnificent work, guys. Amazing.